Hello and welcome to Train News. It's been a quiet few months in the rail industry, not much been going on, so this shouldn't take very long. Only joking, obviously. The biggest story is of course the release of the long-delayed integrated rail plan, which has basically seen the cancellation of most of HS2's eastern leg and also Northern Powerhouse Rail. HS2's western leg will be built to Manchester Piccadilly as planned, with 3 further sections of new high-speed rail, linking Warrington to Manchester, Manchester to Marsden and Birmingham to East Midlands Parkway. Also under the plan, the Midland Main Line and TransPennine lines will be fully electrified, though it's notable that these aren't new promises, they have been promised before. There's more explanation and analysis of the plans in a bonus video I've made, which you can watch here. I'll also be releasing another video about the integrated rail plan and its effects on West Yorkshire in the next few weeks. Hitachi and Alstom have won their joint bid to build the first trains for HS2. 54 trains have been ordered. They will be capable of 225 miles per hour, 360 kilometers per hour. They'll be 200 meters long and they'll be capable of running on both dedicated high speed and existing infrastructure. The first trains are due to be completed in 2027. At this point, with the cutbacks to HS2's eastern leg, it's not obvious whether the pure high-speed trains with a wider loading gauge will be ordered at all. Hitachi and Alstom saw off rival bids from Siemens, CAF and Talgo. Hitachi had previously been bidding jointly with Bombardier, with Alstom bidding separately. Alstom then acquired Bombardier, leading to the creation of this joint bid. What will the new trains look like? Well, they'll probably be an entirely new bespoke design, bringing together design elements from 3 previously separate families of high-speed trains. Network Rail have started work on electrifying the next stage of the Midland Main Line from Kettering to Market Harborough. This was announced a couple of years ago and is not part of the integrated rail plan, but that didn't stop the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps from disingenuously claiming that the work marks the start of the IRP's implementation. The entire Midland Main Line will now be electrified, as mentioned, under the IRP. Again, I should just point out, this was first promised in the early 2010s and was then cancelled in 2017 by Chris Grayling. Adding yet more salt in the wound for the North, the government have now downgraded Transport for the North's role in Northern Powerhouse Rail from co-client to co-sponsor. TfN was set up in 2016 as a way of devolving transport strategy and was given the main task of developing Northern Powerhouse Rail, though it was given very little actual funding, power or influence. TfN did exactly what it was proposed to do, develop the preferred option for NPR, just for the government to then say, nah, we're not doing that, and go with a silly Stalybridge bypass option instead. So while this latest move is galling, it's not particularly surprising. Alright, I'm done talking about the IRP. For now. Moving on to the other major stories of the episode, starting with the dramatic decision to strip Govia of the Southeastern franchise, after it emerged the company owed the government some undeclared £25 million. According to Modern Railways, the undeclared money came about as a result of the track access charges Southeastern pays to HS1, or rather the reduced fees that it was paying because it was running less services than usual, adding up to savings of about £25 million, which was subsequently undeclared. Govia claim it was an honest mistake and say they have now repaid the money, but on the 20th of September the government decided that the company would be taken back into public ownership on the 17th of October, the day the company had previously been planning to transfer to a national rail contract. It's the 3rd franchise to return to public ownership in recent years, following the East Coast and Northern. A previous attempt to run a new competition for the Southeastern franchise was cancelled in August 2019. Now many will see this as just a footnote in the history of UK rail franchising, which has long been declared dead as the industry prepares to restructure itself into Great British Railways. Under the Williams-Shapps Plan for Rail, the Emergency Recovery Measure Agreement, ERMAs, which have been in place since September 2020, will be replaced with national rail contracts, themselves an interim agreement before GBR is fully set up, when they will be replaced with passenger service contracts. First was, appropriately, the first company to sign national rail contracts with the government for Southeastern Railway, which it operates with MTR and TransPennine Express, starting on the 19th of May 2021. Essex Tameside, branded as C2C, Greater Anglia and West Midlands trains, which includes London North Western, have also moved to national rail contracts in recent months. East Midlands Railway, Great Western Railway and Avanti West Coast are also due to move to national rail contracts in the near future. LNER, Northern and now Southeastern remain under public hands under the operator of last resort, and there's no obvious route for these to return to the private sector anytime soon. Transport for Wales is also in state hands, owned by the Welsh Government, and the Scottish Government are due to take over operation of ScotRail in April 2022. The pointless battle over emergency funding for TfL continues. The most recent bailout was supposed to end on the 11th of December, but was extended by a week as TfL came dangerously close to running out of money, which would have meant major cutbacks on bus and tube services. The latest agreement sees TfL through all the way until the 4th of February, kicking that can just a little bit down the track so we can have this whole argument all over again in a few weeks' time. It's just the latest example of the government egregiously playing politics with public transport in a rather pathetic attempt to embarrass Sadiq Khan. I think it's also symptomatic of a wider perception problem with viewing public transport as a failing business and not an essential public service, which is especially absurd given the position we're in this global pandemic. You know, the main reason TfL has these financial problems is because London commuters have been following government-imposed lockdowns and guidance to stay at home. Speaking of never-ending political battles, it's time to discuss my very favourite topic, the Castlefield Corridor. Following the previously discussed consultation, Network Rail, the Department for Transport and Transport for the North have now unveiled the details of what they call Option B+, which differs from Option B of the proposed timetable with the addition of an hourly service from Southport to Manchester Oxford Road via Bolton all day. There'll also be one local stopping service running through from Liverpool to Manchester via Warrington Central instead of being split at Warrington as was previously proposed. Local stations between Stalybridge and Huddersfield won't gain extra off-peak calls than they have at the moment, and although most Cleethorpes, Sheffield and Manchester trains will be running to Liverpool Lime Street instead of Manchester Airport, Sheffield will retain at least one daily service to Manchester Airport. You can read more about Option B Plus and the consultation as a whole in the link below if you're interested. It's notable that out of the three options, Option C was actually the most popular. Option B Plus will see 10 trains per hour running through Manchester Piccadilly platforms 13 and 14 all day, with 2 trains per hour terminating from the west at Oxford Road, raising to 3 trains per hour during peak time. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham said he will refuse to back the proposals until the government publish plans to fix the underlying infrastructure problems. It's the second time that Burnham has blocked the Recovery Task Force proposals on this basis, although this time he's being more explicit and specifically calling for platforms 15 and 16 at Manchester Piccadilly, something I've been banging the drum about for many years now. I don't know if Andy reads my emails or not, but I am very glad to see him, take up this issue properly. That being said, I do support the Recovery Task Force timetable as it is currently proposed in the medium term. Andy Burnham has also called for first class on all regional trains in the north to be declassified. The new timetable is set to come into service in December 2022. Under the December 2021 timetable change, TransPennine Express have begun operation of 5 daily local stopping services between Newcastle and Edinburgh. These are separate to the Liverpool, Newcastle, Edinburgh services, which are set to be cut back to Newcastle with the wider remodelling of the East Coast timetable next year. The new stopping trains will call at Reston, currently under construction, once it opens. There's been a lot of criticism of the rail industry for planning this new station in Reston without properly thinking through how it would best be served when it's on a particularly congested main line. Noise complaints has led to TPE ending the overnight stabling of Class 68s at Scarborough, meaning Class 185s will now be used to serve the first and last train of the day. Prior to the pandemic, Scarborough had regular through services to Liverpool via Manchester, although for the last year and a half they've been running as a shuttle service just to York. From May 2022, Nova 3 trains will start appearing on the Cleethorpes route. From December 2022, the Cleethorpes trains will start running through to Liverpool Lime Street instead of Manchester Airport, as part of the aforementioned Manchester Recovery Task Force timetable. Also in December 2022, trains from Hull will start running through to Liverpool Lime Street, instead of trains from Scarborough, which will terminate at Manchester Piccadilly. There are a lot of changes for TransPennine Express in the near term, with the eventual network map looking quite different to the one that was set out in the new franchise in April 2016. In the medium term, we'll be seeing a lot of disruption with the upgrading of the TransPennine route, and then not really paid off in the long term by the half-baked version of Northern Powerhouse Rail. The 15 Class 185s that were due to come off lease in December 2021 have now been retained. It's possible that some Class 185s will transfer to East Midlands Railway over the next year. In December 2022, the Liverpool to Norwich service is finally due to be split, as has long been planned, in Nottingham, although it's been confirmed now that EMR will continue operating the Liverpool to Nottingham train rather than it transferring to either TransPennine Express or Northern, though they might be using some of these Class 185 trains. Returning now to the December 2021 timetable change, which on many parts of the network has seen a marked return to normality, with more services being introduced, including Avanti West Coast's headline 3 trains per hour between London Euston and Manchester Piccadilly. We've also seen Gatwick Express reappear on the network. Whether Omicron renders this return to normality a bit premature is yet to be seen. Over the Christmas holidays we have seen quite a lot of disruption due to staff illnesses, particularly on TransPennine Express. The timetable change also saw the launch of LNER's new daily return service from London King's Cross to Middlesbrough. Ex-LNER Mark IV carriage sets have started appearing on the network in Wales, running between Cardiff and Holyhead, and are due to start appearing on services between Manchester and South Wales in December. These replace the Mark IIIs, which were not compliant with new accessibility regulations. The Mark IVs won't be around for very long, as they are due to be replaced with Class 197 Civility trains. LNER are increasing the use of older Intercity 225 sets on services to Leeds and York, partially because of the CRATS problems with the Azuma trains. In the long term, they're looking to replace the trains with 10 new bimodes. The Isle of Wight line reopened on the 1st of November. It's been closed since the 4th of January, with new Viva Rail Class 230s, ex-London Underground District Line trains, replacing the even older ex-London Underground 1938 stock trains. The line's reopening was delayed by various teething problems and also by flooding. Okehampton has officially rejoined the rail network as part of the first of the government's Restoring Your Railways projects. The line through the station had previously been run as a heritage railway, the Dartmoor Railway, with Great Western running summer Sunday services between Okehampton and Exeter. These ended in 2019, and in February 2020 the Dartmoor Railway entered administration. Since then, Network Rail has taken ownership of the line and done some work to bring the track up to standard. The first regular train ran on the 20th of November, with an initial frequency of a train every 2 hours linking Okehampton to Exeter every day, and this is due to increase to an hourly service in May. These are timed to connect well with local buses. The intermediate station, which had been served also by the summer Sunday service at Sandford Courtenay, wasn't reopened. There are longer-term plans to extend the line through to Plymouth via Tavistock, which would help better connect isolated communities and also provide a useful diversionary route to Cornwall, avoiding the Dawlish seawall, the collapse of which in 2014 left Cornwall isolated from the rest of the network for several months. Network Rail have completed the Warrington dive under, allowing freight trains to access the joint line to Lincoln, crossing under the tracks of the East Coast Main Line, reducing track conflicts. Freightliner attracted headlines in October when it announced it would temporarily withdraw all of its electric locos due to the soaring costs of electricity, running more diesel trains instead. Trams on the West Midlands Metro were suspended for a month between the 13th of November and the 15th of December as repairs were carried out after it was discovered that there were cracks on the CAF Urbos trams. On the 31st of October, a South Western Railway train derailed and collided with a Great Western Railway train near Salisbury. 15 people, including the driver of the South Western Railway train, were injured, though fortunately there were no fatalities. Poor rail adhesion, probably caused by leaves, was the likely cause. It's been reported that the South Western Railway train failed to stop at a red signal even though the emergency brakes were applied. Of course, this is all being investigated properly by the Rail Accident and Investigation Branch. November saw the COP26 conference take place in Glasgow, with a major strike that would have crippled ScotRail services during the conference narrowly averted after three-way talks between the company, the Scottish Government and the TSSA union. Viva Rail and Porterbrook took the opportunity to show off their battery-powered Class 230 ex-London Underground D-Stock train and hydrogen-powered Hydroflex Class 799 in Glasgow Central. Double points for upcycling old trains and also for battery and hydrogen power, I suppose. Manufacturers and Roscoe are determined to prove that hydrogen trains aren't just for show, which is why Eversholt has placed a speculative order for 10 hydrogen-powered Aventra trains to enter service somewhere with someone in 2025. So that's nice. Of course, in my view, nothing beats the proven existing technology of overhead wires, especially when compared to the carbon intensity of flying. That's why, ahead of COP26, Eurostar and Avanti West Coast ran a promotional climate train from Amsterdam to Glasgow, which was actually obviously two separate trains with an awkward change in London. Getting regional Eurostar up and running would have been one step better, but I suppose they were on a limited budget. Not to be outdone, the Austrian climate minister made a show of taking the train all the way from Vienna to Glasgow, using the Vienna-Brussels NightJet. Meanwhile, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson travelled from London to Glasgow by private jet, because irony is dead. It's worth saying the Austrian government is doing more than just photo opportunities with NightJet trains. In October, it launched the nationwide climate ticket, allowing unlimited travel on all modes of public transport in Austria with an annual pass costing €1,095, or roughly just €3 per day. That being said, expansion of the NightJet network is underway, with the December 2021 timetable change seeing the launch of two new services, from Paris to Vienna and from Amsterdam to Zurich. The Paris-Vienna train is initially running as a standalone service 3 times a week. The eventual plan is to run it every night, and it's supposed to be combined with the Brussels to Vienna train, and both Brussels and Paris will gain through coaches to Berlin. The Paris-Vienna train is running as NightJet number 469, a nod to the Orient Express, which previously connected the two cities with the same number. OBB's 13 new 7-car NightJet sets are due to start entering service this year, and the company have just ordered 20 more. Those waiting for European sleepers' new service from Brussels to Berlin and Prague will have to wait a little bit longer, but not too much, as the new service is now set to launch in the summer. The initial timetable will see the train start in Brussels, though the eventual ambition is for it to start in Ostend, and there will also be through coaches added later for Warsaw. RegioJet, which will provide the rolling stock for the service, are also rapidly expanding their own services across Central and Eastern Europe, with plans to run new competitive domestic services in Poland and a dazzling array of new international services. These are Berlin to Prague, Berlin, Prague, Vienna, Budapest and Zagreb, Munich to Prague, Munich to Budapest, Prague, Warsaw, Gdynia, Vienna, Warsaw and Vienna, Krakow, Przemysl. In Spain, the night train will take the strain once again as the daylight wanes. Over the last 2 years, we've seen Spanish operator Renfe shut down the last of its sleeper operations, but now political pressure from the left-wing Mas Pais party has put night trains back on the agenda. With €210 million being set aside to develop new and restored routes between Madrid and Barcelona to Galicia, Madrid to Paris and Madrid to Lisbon. Separately to this, Portuguese operator CP has for some months now shown interest in restoring and running the Lisbon to Hendai service previously operated by Renfe, though seemingly with little progress. The last reports I've read are that the Talgo coaches that Renfe were using on their Tren Hotel services were due to be exported and sold to India. I've not seen any update on this recently, so I don't know if this is going to be the case, but if it is, then obviously they're going to need some new coaches. Another nation seeking to improve cross-border connectivity is Norway, with daytime connections between Oslo and Gothenburg being restored in October after being suspended for over a year. The government and state operator are also considering plans to restore night trains between Oslo and Copenhagen. The December 2021 timetable change saw a range of new and improved services across Germany, including new ICE Sprinter services between Cologne and Berlin. These new non-stop trains will connect the two cities 3 times a day in under 4 hours, compared to the normal journey time of 4.5 hours, though annoyingly they won't connect at all with the Brussels to Cologne ICEs, making them useless for Brussels to Berlin journeys. A number of other ICE Sprinters and intercity services are being introduced. I'm not going to list them all, but if you're interested you can click the link in the description below to see the Deutsche Bahn website with more information. The timetable change also saw the launching of a rather circuitous railjet service from Frankfurt to Vienna via Lindau and Innsbruck, taking about 12 hours. It's not intended as a Frankfurt to Vienna train. ICE trains do the journey in 6.5 hours, but more as 2 trains kind of fused together, connecting Frankfurt and Vienna with the Alps. A new Eurocity train links Budapest with Ljubljana via Graz, and new through coaches have been added to the Dacia Euronight service from Vienna, connecting it directly to Cluj and Timisoara in Romania. Journey times between Zurich and Munich have been cut further to 3.5 hours. In December 2020, a new Eurocity Express service initially taking 4 hours was launched between the two cities after the line between them was electrified. Trenitalia has launched a new Freccia-Rossa service between Paris and Milan, competing head-on with TGVs on that route. The new service, initially running twice a day, serves Lyon-Pau d'Eu and runs to and from Milano Centrale rather than Milano-Porta Garibaldi, offering better connections for onward trains into Italy to Venice and Rome and so on. Elsewhere, however, connectivity between France and Italy has gotten worse in recent years. A story from earlier this year, which I didn't cover, was Thello basically falling off the map, with the Paris to Venice sleeper trains never being reinstated after the first lockdown. In June 2021, the regional daytime services between Marseille and Nice and Milan were discontinued, meaning passengers travelling between southern France and northern Italy now have to change in Ventimiglia, where, as Mark Smith of Seat 61 points out, the timetables don't really match up and there are no through tickets either, which is just swell. The sleeper train between Berlin and Przemysl has been discontinued, with the daytime Eurocity train from Berlin to Krakow now being extended to Przemysl instead. Spanish operator Renfe has for some time now been trying to introduce competitive domestic services in France, as French operator SNCF has successfully done in Spain, but with little success. They recently gained headlines by proposing to run competitive services between London and Paris to compete with Eurostar, which I can tell you now has a less than 0% chance of ever happening. COVID passports are becoming increasingly common on long-distance services across Europe. They've been mandatory in France and Italy for some months now, and have now been introduced in Germany. This means that you must have proof of vaccination, proof of recovery, or a negative COVID test to travel. Meanwhile, face masks, which have been mandatory in most countries this whole time, have also been reintroduced in countries where rules were relaxed earlier this year, namely the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Hungary. Finally, stepping outside the usual catchment area of the show, a new railway line has opened between Botan, China and Vientiane, Laos. The new line is 400 kilometres in length, with maximum speeds of about 100 miles an hour, 160 kilometres an hour. Trains will link Vientiane with Kunming in southwestern China, though at the moment there are no trains across the border because of coronavirus restrictions. The new line, built as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, makes it theoretically possible to travel by train all the way from Western Europe to Singapore. And that brings us to the end of today's rather news-heavy show. I would expect the next episode probably around May, although I will also be releasing a bonus video about the integrated rail plan's effects on West Yorkshire in the next few weeks. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.